Should we announce at the end? Okay.
Okay.
I don't hear.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Why don't you make me? Thank you. That's cute. Oh, I love that. So nice. We should have like a section just for your family over here. Okay. Hi, everybody. It's like, yeah, I told Julia, we really don't need to put out chairs. We're going to have 10 people. It's really not a big deal. But Julia said, no, I think we'll have some more. But yeah, there's a lot of people on here. Feeling a little intimidated right now. Hi, everybody. Hi to the women that I'm very comfortable and familiar teaching on a regular basis. And hi to the men that I don't usually teach. So let's give this a try. I know that what I do works with the women, but this will be a test. We'll see if the men come back for more. But the good news is I'm not teaching next week. There's another teacher. So even if you don't like this, hold the tomatoes, try it again next week. And every Tuesday night, there's going to be a different speaker, some women, some men. We're going to keep moving it around and around. And it's always, we hope that every week will be something special. The class that we're going to talk about tonight, which I titled it Choosing Your Destiny, which sounds so like, ooh, right? Sounds amazing to kind of be in the driver's seat of your life and to at least have the, maybe it's a real sense of power, or maybe it's a false sense. Like, do we really have any power over our destiny? So we're going to be talking about that. But before we even go into that, and I'm going to give you guys some sources and some stories, and there's going to be bits of Jewish wisdom, but I actually want to try something to get started. So I want everyone here, there's people here from all different ages and stages and backgrounds, and we all come from somewhere. And I know most of you, I know a lot of your stories where you're coming from, like Brooklyn over there, and Boston, and some people are native Chicagoans, but we're all coming from somewhere. And I just want you to go back in time in your mind. Almost go into your parents' living room. And there's a family portrait on the wall or on the coffee table or picture, and there you are. Okay, so just kind of conjure up an image of yourself. Sue's laughing, okay? It's not supposed to be that funny. But picture and come up with a picture of yourself, Sue. I don't know if you had pigtails, or I don't know what. Yeah, what ponytail, a fakrimta punim. Like you, what does that mean? Like you were like you were like mad in all the pictures. Every picture, like, why am I wearing this stupid dress? Okay, so I want you all to come up with that picture of yourself as a child. And this is before the decades that are going to come on, and the challenges and the ups and downs that is just inevitable in all of our lives. And I want you to go to this child and tell the child something. What would you tell that child? You might tell the child to never give up, right? Because many of us throughout our lives, we have dreams. Sometimes we put dreams down. Sometimes we're lucky enough to go back to them. Sometimes like things change and we can never, things happen in life. What would you tell that child, that beautiful girl? I'm looking at you, but anyone can answer. That it's going to be okay. Okay. Steve, what would you tell that little boy? It was, I cannot even imagine what he was like as a child. Okay. I'm just like, wow. And your parents are going straight up there to, you know, after 120, straight to the Garden of Eden. Yes, PG. Great things are ahead. Okay, so hold on tight, don't give up. Great things are coming. What else would we tell this child? Don't settle. Okay, everything is going to be okay. Okay, so because we now have hindsight. We've seen a lot of our life from that young child to where we are now. You wish you would have known then, right? And just kind of like see how far you've come. So there's I'm a big Zumba. You guys know that I love Zumba, right? You guys all know that. So one of the songs, it's not like it's a Jewish group of Zumba ladies, but it's secular music. So one of the songs called "Shout Out to My Ex." Has anyone heard of that song?
Type it in here.
Good. Lucky, because not all the words are so clean. But the main words that I love is, okay, and I wrote them down because I was going to forget it. It says, you made my heart break, and that made me into who I am. And it's like, here's to my ex. Hey, look at me now. It's almost this like power that when we come through something hard, we could say, I did that. When we look back after a couple years, a decade, whatever it is, or a short period, but a challenge, it's literally like we've climbed a mountain. And when we look back, we're like, I can't believe how far I've come. Okay, so I think we could all think about our own lives and the struggles and the hardships and how we've overcome, because the purpose of our lives is not to have like, you know, not to avoid the lampposts. Like that is not the optimal life. We're not going after comfort. We're going after growth. So we don't just want to go through life. We want to grow through life. And that's what we're trying to do over here at L'Chaim Center. So now let's bring in our topic of the day, which is mazel, okay? Because we all come in with our circumstances. And there's certain things that it's who I am. It's a part of, it's how smart you are, how beautiful you are, how, I don't know, yes, beautiful, like all the things. It's right, our social, what's it called? Social economic status, the family that we're born into, right? Whether we have, a healthy family, whether we have a traumatic experience growing up, all of this has a lot to do with the outcome. And so much of that, if not all of that, those are things that we cannot choose, right? I mean, it's like things are handed to you and you have to make the most out of what you've been dealt. So what are you gonna do? So how much control do we have? How much are we really in charge of our own destiny? What are we in control of? Right? We're born into this world, we're put into a family, we grow up in a certain place, we have limited exposure to anything but what we've been handed. So are we in charge of ourselves, of our destiny? So now let's bring in the Jewish concept of mazel. Okay, mazel tov, probably the most common Jewish word, right? I mean, didn't Adam Sandler sing about like mazel tov in one of his songs? And everyone knows mazel tov, right? Or they say mazel tov, right? Is that like how some people, mazel tov, right? Mazel. Mazel means, give me a translation. So I heard luck, good fortune, okay. What else? Maybe some, may the force be with you, okay? So what does it actually mean? What is mazel? Do we believe in luck? We don't believe in luck. When, right, if I say by accident, oh my gosh, you guys are so learned over here. If I'll say something like, wish me luck or good luck, what do you say, Adrian? How do you respond? No such thing. What is it? What do we say? It's all blessing, right? Right? We focus more on blessing. Nothing is by chance. Luck sounds so by chance, right? Like, right? It's destiny. It's like super, what's the word? Like serendipitous? Serendipitous. That means like whatever, like it just happens, right? Like it just, the stars aligned, right? That's a way that we would talk about it. So there happens to be, so we do believe in mazel, and mazel is, it's defined as luck, but I think that's a bad definition, okay? So what it actually is the way that the stars align in the sky. It's astrology, okay? That things are put into motion, things are set up in the you know, in the upper worlds that determine so much of what we experience down here. Okay, so that is fact. That is a Jewish fact, that we believe that certain things are predetermined. Okay, so now let's be very, very careful not to get stuck over here. By the way, it is very hot in this room. Yeah, is it? Okay. I mean, I thought I was just the only one, but are you good? You're hot? Hot. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so mazel. So there are, just like with everything in Judaism, you have 2 Jews and 3 opinions. So this is no different. Okay, even in the same quote that I'm about to read you, you're gonna hear that there's like 2 opinions even within the same, you know, piece of wisdom. So I'm going to bring you 2 different opinions on the topic of mazel. Do we believe in it? Do we hold on to it? Does it define us? Okay, so quote number 1 is from the Talmud, in Talmud Shabbos, and it says, so this is Rabbi Hanina that's saying this. He says, one's mazel makes one wise, and one's mazel makes one wealthy. And there is a mazel for the Jewish people. Okay, puts that down. Now his chavruta, his study buddy across the table from him, does not agree with his opinion. And Rabbi Yochanan says there is no mazel for the Jewish people. The Jewish people are not subject to the influence of astrology. Okay, so 2 Jews, 3 opinions. Okay, what is it? Is it yes mazel? Is it no mazel? Do we believe in it? Do we not? So a different part of the Torah in Talmud Moed Katan says like this, and this is actually written in Aramaic, which you thought Hebrew was difficult. Aramaic is even more difficult. So it's hard to say these words, but basically what he's saying in English is there are 3 things that are determined by your mazel. 3 things. Those are the 3 things. Everything else is up to you. But what are those 3 things? Bane, chaye, umezone. Okay, so bane is your children, whether you're going to have or not, what they're going to be like, what their lives are going to be like, all of the things, you know, defined with your children. Bane. Chaye is, what's a chay? Chay, what's like, chay means life. Okay, so chaye is your life. Okay, so how long you're going to live, when you're going to be born, when you're going to die, right? I saw a beautiful quote today. It says that there's 2 dates in your life with a dash. Make the dash count, right? The dash is everything, right? But that is determined, according to this, by one's mazel. Okay, your whole life, what it's going to look like, how long it's going to be. Are you going to suffer? Are you going to prosper? All of that, your life. And then the third one, so chaye, bane, umizone. Mizone is your livelihood. Okay, if you're gonna your financial wealth, your struggles with finances, all of that, it's predetermined. You don't even you don't have to work so hard, Bob. It's already up there in the stars, right? How many rings you're gonna sell this year, how many diamonds you're gonna sell, it's all predetermined, right? That is what it says. Those three things are written in the stars, and that is according to that's your mazel. It's your lot, right? That's what you got. Okay, so let's hash this out a little bit. Do we not believe in mazel? Okay, because there's two opinions, right? So the three things we do, and then the rest of it we don't? Or is it that one says that yes, we have mazel and we attach to it and we believe in it, we give it power, versus we don't believe in mazel because basically his words are that the Jewish people are lemala min hamazel. We could override whatever it is that's even written up there in the stars. Okay, so those are the two opinions. I'm going to put them down. We're going to hash it out with some ideas now. Okay, the greatest example of someone that overcame what was written in the stars is, for sure, I think this is the greatest example. It's the story of Abraham and Sarah. Okay, so much so that in the beginning of the story, God says to Abraham, go outside and look up at the stars. You see all those stars shining in the sky? Those are going to be like your children. So numerous, so many. You're going to be a father of a great nation. Now, Abraham knows through astrology that he did not merit to have even one child. He was already 100 years old. His wife, Sarah, was 90 years old. You're a spring chicken compared to Sarah. Okay, and Sarah was barren her whole life, didn't have a child, no children yet. And not only that, but when you go a little deeper into the story, she doesn't even have a womb. She doesn't have the mechanics to even have a child. It's impossible. So Abraham so gently or politely says, God, I hear that you want to give me all these children like the stars, but it actually says up there in the stars that I'm not destined to have a child. And God says, Abraham is not destined to have a child. I'm going to change your name to Abraham. He adds a hey. Avram turns Avraham. And Sarai, she's also not destined to have a child. But Sarah is destined. I'm going to change her name from Sarai to Sarah. I'm going to change something, and you're going to be able to have this new start. Okay, and that's actually what happens. Give me another example of things that we change to create a new start. So I'll give you, Marilyn, you know this for sure, but and many people probably do know or might have noticed that when someone, God forbid, gets ill and they need a salvation, what do we add? A name. We give them a new name. Similar to Abraham and Sarah, God changed their names and they had a new mazel, okay? And they were able to have a new start. So even till today, I mean, it's a very common thing. If someone is very, very ill, we add a Jewish name because a Jewish name comes with a different mazel, a different energy. And the names that we'll usually add are things that bring healing, like Michael or Raphael, which means healing, right? We'll give a name like Chaim. We'll add a name for life when someone is going in the opposite direction. Chaya for a woman, right? So we'll add something that gives that energy. We'll give that mazel, okay? So what else do we do that can change mazel? Okay, so this is, I don't know if anyone has heard of this, but sorry? Very good. Excellent, excellent. So there is a concept that's brought down that says, you want to change your mazel? You could do that, but it's going to be hard. You're going to have to go outside your comfort zone. So there's a quote in I'm not sure where it's brought down, Mishaneh makom, if you change your place, Mishaneh mazal, you could change your mazel. So, for example, what does that mean? Oh, first of all, think about Abraham and Sarah, how God says, you know, lach lecha, go, get out of your comfort zone, go to a land that's new and foreign, and you're going to create a new identity for yourself. So there is something to really, really changing who you are, where you are, not being sedentary in your lifestyle, get out of your comfort zone, and maybe there'll be new blessings that are awaiting you, okay? Okay, there's actually a true story. I have 7 brother-in-laws and sister-in-laws because Gadi's one of 6 and I have 2. So one of the many sister-in-laws, she couldn't have children for 7 years. It's not like Sarah at 90, but still, it was a really big deal when I married into the family. For 7 years, they were the first to get married, and then another one just had recently gotten married, and I'm the third to get married. And you could only imagine, like, everyone is kind of feeling like, oh, like, what's going to happen if one of the younger couples, has a baby, right? Like, it's just going to be so painful. Like, it was almost like this cloud that was like hanging over the family, like this fear of all the emotions that, it's just really, really hard. So at that time, and once again, it wasn't because of this, but at that time, they decided they needed a change. And it was in the beginning of my marriage, this couple, this childless couple that had gone to every doctor, done every treatment, that they've traveled far and wide to get all the medical help that they could possibly have. They decided that they were going to move. They were going to pick up and move and have a new start. And when they moved into their new start, they were blessed with their twins. That's all they didn't have more after that. But these twins are basically their life. I can't even imagine life without these boys that totally flipped their lives upside down. But actually, in reality, it was only after they made this massive move that something opened, something changed. Okay, so now I want to take you guys, let's take you back in time, like a few months ago. Okay, not all the way to your youth, but a couple months ago, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, we say prayers and we say words again and again and again that are asking God to forgive us and to give us a clean start, okay? Those words, many of you will know them: Teshuvah, Tefillah, and Staka, Ma'avirin et Roa HaGezerah, okay? How do we make sure that we're going to have a year of blessing? Again and again in the prayers, we say, we sing, we pour our heart out. Teshuvah, repentance, prayer, and charity will remove an evil decree, okay? So now let's talk about this, because we know that we could overcome whatever is written up there and hanging above us. We have the ability to override and overcome it, but it's going to take a lot of work. So we also know that to really overcome an evil decree, we're talking about if you're struggling with life and death, and we want to live during those few weeks before the high holidays, we do repentance, prayer, and charity. We do it for that time to show God, please, because those are the things that have the ability to uproot anything difficult that's written or being held over our heads up there in Shemayim, in heaven, in the stars. Okay, so I'm going to tell you guys a true story that happened. This is a couple thousand years ago, in the times of Rabbi Akiva. Okay, Rabbi Akiva, the great sage, giant. Do you know his story? I could spend a whole class telling his story. An incredible human being. And Rabbi Akiva, sorry, I'm not looking at this, but you guys are basically just staring at my stomach. Let me move you back a little bit. Okay. I just ate. That's so good. Okay. So Rabbi Akiva was told by an astrologer that there was something in the stars that his daughter was going to die on her wedding day. Terrible, terrible. This is actually, we as Jews, we don't go to fortune tellers. It's not a good thing to know your fortune or to know what's going to happen, because it limits you. It limits you. If you knew when was going to be your last day, you would live your life very differently. So I don't know why or how, but in that time, he knew. The astrologer came and told him, Rabbi Akiva, you're such a great man. I need to warn you. There's something written up there in the stars against your daughter. And you know, I'm giving you this information out of love because I care about you, and you know, good luck. So you could just imagine his daughter is getting ready for the wedding. It's so joyous. It's such a happy time. And he is like pit in his stomach, feeling sick because he knows that this joyous day might be the saddest day of his life. So the wedding's going on and the flowers are arriving. And I don't know what it was like back in the day, but you know, very different to weddings today. But it was still joyous and exciting. And there's so much great cheer in the air. And he is just watching and scared and not even able to appreciate or to really enjoy the day. He's just cautiously looking at his daughter and making sure that every step that she's okay. Anyways, they make it through the wedding, and he's still watching and can't breathe and can't sleep and what's he gonna do? He's literally up all night. He sees her go off to her tent with her groom. And he's just, praying and worried sick to his stomach. And the light comes, the next day comes, the sun rises, and he hears some rumbling in the tent, and out comes his daughter. And his daughter comes over to him and she says, Dad, something crazy happened to me last night. Says, what? And he's like, could you imagine? You feel your heart beating? Like, what happened? Because he's been waiting all night. He didn't want to disrupt her. Like, what's he going to do? He's not going to be in the tent with her, but he couldn't breathe. So she said, last night when I came to the tent and I unpinned my hair, I stuck the pin that was holding up my hair into the tent wall behind me. And we went to bed. And when I woke up this morning and there was light was filling the tent, I saw that my pin was piercing a cobra's eye. And she had this cobra pinned. He was a venomous cobra that was pinned to the pole of the tent. And he said, well, and he's praying, thank you, God, thank God. And she said, and he says to her, what did you do yesterday? You must have done something out of the ordinary. Tell me about your day. And she starts going, I went here, I went there. And she said, nothing out of the ordinary. So he says, tell me more, think about it. Think really, really hard. Something, you must have done something really great to merit what happened to you, that you were saved. So she said, you know what, now that I think about it, there was a beggar that came to the home. It was a wedding that was probably in their tent, and came to the door of the tent and was asking for food. And back in the day, I wasn't like, there was no smorgasbord that was 40 feet long, there was a little bit of food to go around, and there wasn't so much. So she took her plate, her wedding meal, and she went to the door and she gave her plate, her meal, her wedding meal, to a beggar. She didn't think anything of it. There was someone hungry, she wasn't hungry, she gave hers, no big deal. And he said, you saved your life, because what you did was above and beyond what would have been expected of you. Because a bride, it's normal for a bride not even to see the beggar, because you're so absorbed in the moment and your joy and it's all the excitement, that it would have been okay. Like, it would have been the norm not to go above and beyond in that moment. But because you did, God saved you. So now we understand that everything that has to do with changing your muzzle has to do with going a little bit above and beyond. When the sages were discussing and debating if the Jewish people are held to our muzzle, that our life, our children, our parnasa is set, it's determined from above, and that's what we have for our entire lives, and there's nothing, it's set in the stars, and it's true, it is. But then the other sages are fighting that, saying, but a Jew could overcome it. We could override it. We just have to work really hard. And it is possible to do that. So I'd like to just pause for a second. And I want, I know that we have a lot of people here on Zoom. There's 17 people on Zoom. But I'd love to hear from some people in the room. And if someone wants to write in on Zoom, who in your life, or maybe even like a biblical somebody that became who they became, not because they were born into it, but because they overcame something. Okay, now let's just start. We gave one example. We spoke about Abraham. Okay, yeah. Abraham had many tests in his life, right? We know that Abraham had 10 tests, right? There were so hard tests, really big things that he had to overcome, right? And that's what makes him so great. I mean, was he born into it? Who was Abraham's father? The idol worshiper of the time. I mean, his father owned idols are us. Okay, I mean, the biggest, manufacturer of idols. And Abraham was the one to bring monotheism to the world. That this is a bunch of garbage, these idols. There's nothing they have no power. There's only God in heaven that has all the power. So we see this again and again and again, the great people, the influencers, so to speak, which is a funny term nowadays because everyone is an influencer, right? And what are, like, I don't know, who was I talking to yesterday about Kim Kardashian? Was it anyone in this room? Was it anyone? Was it? I can't remember who. I was in the L'chaim Center talking to someone about Kim Kardashian. Oh, because was she married to Yi? Yeah. Okay, I don't. I'm sorry. I'm so ignorant. I don't follow I don't follow all these people. But really, it's funny. Like Abraham, he was a real influencer, right? And he had something. He had great content and worth to share with the world. Right? So let's now think about different people and who was anyone born into their greatness? Anyone? Was there anyone in Judaism that was, because they were born with a silver spoon, they became who they became? I actually can't think of any. I actually can't think of anyone. It's never easy street. It's never, give me an example. Give me someone, Bob, someone that, a character that you adore in the Tanakh. And anyone, think of your own. Think of yours. Yeah. David. Okay. How was his life? A lot of low points. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, was he was chased by who was trying to kill him? King at that time, Shaul, right? When they were looking for the king, they asked for the sons of Yishai to come and line up. He had many sons, I think 7. They didn't even call him. He was like, no, we don't want David. Like the other ones, the older ones were magnificent. Oh, this must be it. They didn't even call him. He was such an outcast. He had a hard life. And he became King David, the author of so much of the beautiful prayers and Psalms that we learned today. So that's a great example. Anyone else? Moshe, what was his childhood like? I mean, pretty bad. Raised in the home of Paro, in the Hitler of the time. Right? Seriously, how did Moshe? I mean, he for sure struggled with his identity. Was he Jewish? Was he Egyptian? Right? When he's struggling, like when he sees the 2 Jews fighting or the Egyptian killing the Jew, like, I mean, he's really having a hard time, but he becomes the greatest leader of the Jewish people, not because he was born into it, not because it was smooth, because he overcame something. Okay, give me another one. Joseph, tell me their story. So many parts of their story. I mean, which part of it? He had to overcome the hatred that his brothers had. He had to forgive them. I mean, most people wouldn't, but he really overcame so much to become not only the viceroy to Paro in Egypt, which saved the Jewish people during the famine and all that, but also to stay true to himself and to his faith and to his morals and his values he was surrounded by immorality, right? Like no one would be able to withhold the temptation of the Eshed Potiphar that was trying to seduce him again and again and again and again. And yet, I don't know, it's just amazing. He's like a self-made man. Like he in an environment that was less than conducive to staying strong. Anyone else? 1 or 2 more? Esther. Okay, that's the one that I want to talk about for a minute. Okay, let's talk about Esther. Thank you. Okay, Esther. Let's talk about Esther. One of my favorite characters. From what I understand, and there's many ways of interpreting the story, I think she probably had quite a low self-esteem, right? She did not want to be taken to it's not like she was like, choose me, I want to be the queen, like she was hiding. She was dragged against her will. When they came to, and all the women were, it was almost like a beauty pageant. You could soak in lavender and perfumes for 30 days before your chance to be with the king. And she actually requested nothing, no makeup, no perfumes, nothing. All she wanted, actually, you know what she did request? She requested 7 maids so that she could keep track of, they all got a day of the week, so she could keep track of when Shabbat was. She had her priorities straight, even in this very, very, I don't even know what to call this environment, this very non-Jewish environment. She still kept strong to her values. And I believe, we know that she was an orphan. She had a very challenging life. Her mother died in birth with her, I think is the story. And it was, she's, there's this quote in the Megillah where she says, listen, I'm going to do my best. I'm going to go in unannounced to the king. Whatever happens to me, happens to me. Like, all I could do is my efforts, right? And if I perish, I will perish. Those are her words, right? She's all in for the Jewish people with her secrecy and timing and intuition and all of that. But you see, there's like a bit of a low self-esteem, and yet she overcomes it. She overcomes it and walks in to the king's chambers. She's ready to be slaughtered for this act. You do not go to the king unannounced or requested. If the king does not call for you, you don't go. She got the courage. She overcame her nature of being shy and in the back and hiding, because she knew that this is her time, right? And one of the most powerful lines in the Torah is bimakom, in a place, she'ein ish, that there's no one doing the job, hishtadel lihiyot ish. You need to do the job. When no one is stepping up around you and you see a void, a need, something, you have no choice but to step up. I'm going to tell you guys the story. You know the story, Dana. So my kids go to school in West Rogers Park, and Peterson Park, West Rogers Park, and there was, it's a very religious neighborhood, Orthodox Jewish and Muslim, but everyone is covered from head to toe, right? Between the Muslims and the Jews, it's like, you don't see any skin even in the summer. So I'm driving my kids to school and I drop them off at their yeshiva, right? And it's literally, it's just, when you're in that neighborhood, it's a very, do you guys know what I'm talking about? I'm talking California and Peterson Park. Okay. So I'm there, I drop my kids off, and as I'm driving on, I see the bus stop, the billboard, huge billboard, is a picture of a woman wearing underwear. It was literally an ad for, I don't know, Torrid or whatever brand. And it's sitting there, huge, massive. This is where the boys sit and wait for the bus. And I'm thinking, I'm like feeling sick, but what did I do? I'm like, it was last year in the winter, about a year ago. I felt like, well, I don't know anyone. Like, what am I going to do? Right? Like, don't we always do that? Like, when you see something that bothers you, that shouldn't be there, but then you say, but who am I? Right? So I'm embarrassed to say that I kind of said, oh, that's sad. That doesn't belong here. But I drove on. But someone else didn't drive on. And it's Eliza Polstein's husband. What's his name? Morty. Morty was taking his kids to school that morning. And when he saw it, he picked up his phone and he called the number on the marketing agency. And he said, hi. He explained, my kids go to the school. There's an inappropriate picture outside their school, and it's offensive. Not only is it offensive for my community, but I'm assuming that the Muslims that live there would also find this offensive. So I'm not only speaking for myself, I'm really speaking on behalf of that whole radius block. Within the day, it was taken down. Wow. Within the day. And with an apology, and saying that if you ever see anything else that disturbs you, here is my cell number. Okay, this is the marketing woman that he spoke to was like, this is my personal cell number. If anything If you see anything that doesn't fit for this community, because we don't know the nuances, please let us know. Now, it's very easy to see something like, see something, say something. But I mean, I don't know. I think we're all like a little bit jaded and like, I don't know, we don't have enough time. We see things that bother us all the time. But how often do we step up and say something? So that quote, in a place where no one is doing the job, you need to do the job, even if it's not your nature. This is where it comes into be that you are actually changing your destiny. Okay, now I'm going to give you my final example and we can open this up for some conversation. The final example is in the book of Yisro, okay? Jethro, okay? So Yisro was a non-Jew, also steeped in idol worship. That was his whole life. He also was very, very involved in idolatry. And then, but he has a parsha in the Torah that's named after him, Parshat Yitro, and it opens up, open lines, Vayishma Yitro, and Yisro heard. And there's a lot of commentary, well, what did he hear? Because he heard something that inspired him, and he actually goes and becomes a Jew. So what did he hear that changed his heart so much to change his entire life? There were a lot of things that were happening at that time, the time of his conversion. We just finished the 10 plagues in Egypt, the splitting sea. There were miracles happening it was a crazy, amazing, phenomenal time that the Jewish people were living through and the whole world knew. But when it says Vayishma Yitro and Yitro heard, the commentaries tell us that when he heard about the splitting of the sea, he said to himself, if water that flows, that the nature of water is to just fill every space and to flow. If water could go against its nature and become dry land, then even me, an idol worshiper, might be able to change my heart. Maybe even me that's really, really so far away from God could even become a Jew. That was his moment of inspiration. The splitting sea made him think that although we have so many narratives in our mind that I can't do this, I was born like this, oh, this is my lot, this is my situation, this is the family, these are my dynamics, everything. We have numerous, shopping lists of excuses why we don't have to change and we don't have to step up. I mean, I had my whole shopping list when I drove by that sign because I don't know anyone in Chicago and they're not going to listen to me and I don't have time right now. We have excuses. Do you know how many thoughts go through our mind every day? Because many of them are subconscious, right? There's actually like tens of thousands of thoughts that go through our mind, even though we're not even aware of them. We're constantly rationalizing our actions, like rationalizing or rationalize is rational lies, right? We're literally like, we tell ourselves, well, I could never change. And when Yisro converts, that's the lesson that tells us that he says, if something like water could change its nature, then so too maybe I could. So there are some commentaries on this part of the Torah that I found to be very beautiful. I'm pretty sure it's been a long time since I've read this inside, but I'll tell it to you as best as I can. It's here we go. So this is it's a midrash rabbah in the book of Shemot. It says that Hashem, okay, this is a commentary, or how do we describe a midrash? It's a story that God is calling. Okay. Hashem tells Moshe, go split the sea. Okay, get these words. As I originally conditioned it to split. Okay, we're not really sure what that means. And the verse says, and the sea returned to its original place. Okay, so what does this mean? Okay, so in Hebrew it's le'etano, that the sea was split and then it returned to the flowing waters, right? It was split and then it returned, but it says that it was returned. We shouldn't read it to its original place as the water came back together, but to read it le'etano also means to its original condition. Okay, that God created when he created, like 6 days of creation and seventh day he rested, right? The 7 days, right? When he created everything, he created every single thing, including things that are not living, with a condition. The water had a condition that one day it was going to need to split for the Jewish people. That was the condition. Okay, so too, we believe that when God created all of us, there was also a condition. I'm going to create you as you are, but you have a personal condition. And that condition is to overcome something. There's something that you need to achieve. You need to stretch yourself to. And when you become what you're not, that's actually when you become who you are. Isn't that powerful? We think that it's so linear, our lives, but when we go out of what we thought, that's actually when we become, that's the Sue. We're still waiting for the Sue. We're still waiting for the Eve. We're still waiting for the Randy. It's when you become what you're not, sometimes in certain situations, that's when you become who you are meant to be. That's when you have nothing holding you back. So I'm going to give you one or two examples. Okay, there's an example that, okay, we all know gossiping is a really bad thing, right? Gossiping, lashon hara, really bad. Okay, now, if you could hold back, I know it's so, Alan said, but it's so much fun. It's so much fun. If you could be quiet, I know this is really hard for you. I know. If you could be quiet in a moment where you are ready to say something, but you could hold it back, okay? There's a greatness that will happen. Okay, so this is just like, it's something that is said about Judaism. If you're in the moment where you want to share something, you want to lace into someone, and you hold back, so basically you're becoming who you're not, because your nature is to say whatever you want to say. You're becoming who you're not in order to now rise and actually become who you are meant to be. That's one example. I want to tell you guys a fabulous true story that happened to me. This is back in 2015, and I remember it very, very clearly. It was the fall, I think October time, right after the high holidays. If anyone recalls, or if anyone was going to Israel that year, it was a very difficult year in Israel. There were not only, terrorism is always something that, up and down, I lived in Israel for many years when the Intifada was happening, buses were blowing up. This was a very different type of terrorism because people were being stabbed in the streets with kitchen knives. There was nothing you could do to protect yourself. If you wanted to live and go out and you have to go get groceries, you're basically at risk. People just in the streets were being stabbed. So in a good time, sometimes you could feel anxious about traveling to Israel. This was like, wherever your anxiety level was, add on 50 notches. And here I am trying to get my group ready for a trip to Israel. And I'm pretty nervous myself. I had a nursing baby that I was leaving at home. I was thinking, like, how am I going to do this? Like, and I'm shoving my anxiety down and putting on my smile and rah, rah, let's go, ladies, we're going to do this. And I noticed my co-leader, that I chose a woman in my community to come and lead this experience with me. She, on a good day, has very high anxiety. On a good day, like, but this was, we were all over the top, nervous, scared. She also had a little baby at home. And she actually told me in confidence that she was having all these dreams, and she felt like something terrible was going to happen to her. So I'm thinking to myself, this is not going to work out. Like, could you imagine, Melissa? Like, can you imagine? Like, we have to, no, even if everything is terrible, we're like, it's amazing, like, yes, like that's what you have to do on these things. Like, you're shepherding these ladies, and you're like, rah, 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 right, Steve? It's like, yes, there's no, toilet paper, but it's great, So I called her, and we sat in my car, and it was the night before the trip was going to go. And by the way, a couple women dropped out of the trip. They just couldn't do it. Like, people, they would come with their knapsack, like, the Momentum red knapsack, and they wouldn't even say a word. They just would look at me and hand me the knapsack, and I would just nod my head and give them a hug. It was a really hard time. But for a leader to go feeling so anxious, I couldn't take her. So I called her over. We sat in my car because my house, there was no quiet space. And I told her, Mira, I love you so, so much. And it's going to happen for us, that you're going to come another time and we're going to do this together. But I don't think you should come. We'll be fine without you. And your anxiety is so high that it's going to impact the whole group. And I'll never forget what happened, because we're sitting there and we're talking about it and she's crying and we're discussing. And she basically looks at me and she said, if I can't go to Israel, then she said, then what is my life worth living? But I have to do this. She was like a real strong Zionist. And this was everything to her. And she was so, so excited, not just for the trip, but just to go to Israel. And we sat there in silence and I didn't know what to do. Like, do I convince her to come? Do I convince her not to come? Do I say, okay, come? Like, I wasn't quite sure, but I saw once she said that, I couldn't do anything. She was coming. And it was an incredible trip. Thank God everyone was safe. And, it was almost like, out of all the trips, I mean, I've done 17 of these trips. It was probably one of, not the most, but one of the most powerful ones, because it became almost like a solidarity mission. Okay, so here's the postscript of the story. Within that year, Mira Kaplan and her family, her 4 children, I get so emotional, they decided to make Aliyah. Yeah. My husband actually took over her husband's position as the rabbi in Portland for the next 7 years. So there was like a lot of connection over there, and they're so happy living in Israel. But in that car, I believe that she was at a moment where her muzzle was hanging right above her, saying, Mira, this is your limit. This was her limit. And it was totally fine to stay in her comfort zone, in her limit. I was giving her an out. But in that moment, she chose to go above and beyond for her values, for what was really, she was ready to do something hard for her in that moment. And I believe that it changed her muzzle forevermore. So I believe I believe in this. I've seen it with my own eyes, that when we could step out of our comfort zone and just hold on, sometimes it is the scariest thing that you're ever going to do in that moment. It is so scary because first of all, there's no turning back. Like, she knew, even though she was having all these dreams and nightmares and all of that, she didn't know what the outcome was going to be, but she was willing to risk it. When we think about people that have left a legacy, I'm actually doing some research right now because I'm preparing for a trip to Morocco, taking 53 women in 2 weeks to Morocco. And I'm doing a lot of research. And there's a woman that I came across in my research. We're going to be going to her grave. And this is a woman that left such a massive impact on the Jewish world around her. And her story is from the 1700s. And still till today, there's busloads of people that come to her grave to pray there because they know there's special merit there. What was her story? Her story was, at 14 years old, the Muslim king wanted to marry her. And she was hiding, just like Queen Esther. She was hiding. She didn't leave her house because she didn't want him to take her. And eventually he comes, he actually takes her mother captive, and he's going to torture her mother if she doesn't step up and say, okay, take me, I'll marry you. And they say, all you need to do is say that you believe in Muhammad the prophet and you've converted to Islam and it's all good. And she says, I can't do this. The rabbi at that time comes to her aid and says, think of Esther. Think of what she did. She married the king Ahasuerus. She was not such a great guy. She did it for the Jewish people. she's challenging the rabbi. She says, but no one knew that Esther was Jewish, right? Everything was in hiding until the right moment. Everyone knows I'm Jewish. I cannot go against my traditions and my values and become Muslim. I cannot let go of my Judaism. So unfortunately, her story has a very bitter end. I'm sorry to end on such a bitter note. I wasn't planning on sharing the story, but I was just reading it before. But her story is it's quite sad, but it's very powerful. I'm finding it very powerful. Her story is that when she refused to convert to Islam and marry this man, she was going to be killed, but not just a simple death. They tied her beautiful long blonde hair to the horse, and she was dragged around the town. But they said to her, what is your last wish before you die? Right? On death row, people ask for like a Big Mac from McDonald's, like Big Mac and fries, right? Like one more worldly pleasure, right? You know what she asked for? She asked for a needle and thread. And she sewed her dress to her legs so that when she was being traipsed through the town, she would still be as modest as she could. And her story is that hundreds of years, her story is being shared again and again. And people go to this gravesite because what she screams is legacy. Legacy. She never had any children of her own. She never got to live her life the way it could have been. But stepping up, stepping into this realm of Kiddush Hashem, she gave her life for a higher cause. She knew exactly what she was willing to die for. Rabbi Noach Weinberg of blessed memory, the Rosh Hashiva, the founder of Aish HaTorah, he would always say, if you know what you're willing to die for, then you could start living. If we don't even know what we're willing to die for, what are we living for? It's about getting out of your comfort zone, and we could become so much more. So I'm going to end, I'll end with a cute story on a high note, because that was quite a heavy one. This is I don't know if it's a joke, I don't know if it's a Bubba Maisa, but it's kind of cute. This man, olden day, I don't know where this was, make up the details in your mind. He comes to the Rebbe and he says, Rebbe, I have so many children. I don't have enough food to feed them. We're starving, hungry. And the Rebbe says, I'm going to give you a blessing that you should have another child. He's like, Rebbe, did you not hear me? We can't even feed the kids that we have. And he goes home and his wife is like, what? Like, that's a blessing? Doesn't sound like a blessing. Sounds like a curse. But 9 months later, this couple has a child. And with the child comes the mazel of Parnasa. Because as I said, everyone comes into this world with a specific mazel. We all have a mazel that's attached to us. We all bring different strengths and different blessings into this world. They had a large family, but none of their children brought down the mazel of livelihood until this, 11th child came into their family, and it did change and shift everything. So we do believe in mazel. It's a real thing. And we also believe that we have the power to overcome and override anything that holds us back. And I'm open for questions, but we'll end with that, 8:30 on the dot. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. Any questions?
When you were talking about changing your life, Bob and I both were thinking of our daughter who didn't grow up in the religious world,
Right.
Reform, and then she becomes religious and has 7 kids, and yeah.
Right. Like she never would have thought, right?
She met this young woman, Allie Beacon. That's what Allie Beacon. And then we met Allie Beacon and David Beacon, and that changed everything.
Yeah. And she probably did something really hard to overcome, right? Like there's it's hard stuff. Like you have to give something up to step into a new realm, the unknown. When I started off, I was saying, everyone, like, think of yourself as a child. I don't know what stories I shared with my women, but I'll share a couple. I failed 4th grade. I was kicked out of school when I was 18 years old. You know that? I told you that. the first man that I thought I loved told me that I wasn't beautiful enough for him. Okay. I mean, we all wear scars. I could have rolled myself into a ball and stayed there, and that would have been fine, right? All of us, we all have the things that define our narrative of who we are and what we're capable of doing. I mean, from fourth grade, I told myself I have no capacity to understand anything, and an undiagnosed learning, learning issue. They couldn't figure it out. It's really, we could stay there, or we could somehow push our limit. And I think, I mean, there's still greatness. Like we always say in our Tuesday class, you're either green and growing or brown and dying. And there's nothing in between. You could be 120 years old, just almost 120, and you're still green and growing. And that's actually what Moses was until the very end. He was looking upwards. He was trying to grow as a human being. And that is something that, no one could take away from you. You could always be growing and expanding and still going outside your comfort zone and still overcoming whatever obstacles it is for your whole entire lives. So anyways, thank you so much for joining. Thank you, Julie, for coming. And thank the speakers for next week, or do you want to wait? It's like dum da da dum. Okay, so next Tuesday night, we are having none other than the amazing Laura Martyr. Yay! Very, very exciting. And yeah, we'll get the topic, we'll email it out. So we're gonna have Laura next week, and then after that we're having, is it, keep it there? Okay, fine. Okay, so exciting. There's so much talent in this. I'm sorry that you guys got stuck with me tonight, but I mean, whatever, they're like, Eve, you have to do the first one. But it's just going to get better and better and better. And we also have once a month, we're having Rabbi Gadi and Dr. Didi doing Jewish medical ethics, which if you've never been to that before, I highly recommend, because it's very like whatever is like, up and coming and trending in the medical world, they're going to analyze it according to Judaism and according to Jewish sources. So it's so fascinating. Yeah, it really is. So it's going to be every Tuesday. Every Tuesday night, we're basically rotating through different speakers. So they'll do Tuesdays also, like Gadi and Rabbi Didi. It's like the doctor and the rabbi. I feel like that should be a joke. Like a doctor and a rabbi walk into a bar. Yeah. So anyways, thank you so much, everybody. Feel free to stay, schmooze, enjoy, and we'll see you guys soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eve. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi guys, so good to see you. I want to see who's on here. Hi Gloria. Hi Phyllis. Hi Julian, Jared.
Great class, great class.
Great
Aw.
class.
Fabulous.
Very good.
Hey Susie. How you doing? Hey Winners.
Hi,
David.
great class.
Great
Thank you.
Hi Donna.
Hi, Eve and
it's
Jack
good to
sitting
see
back
you.
here.
Thank
Hey, now I get to
Thank
see
you
everyone's
so much.
homes.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Hey Judy.
Appreciate it.
Great class.
Loretta.
Thanks for being on Zoom. Thank you.
Thanks for the great class.
That's